Hello, today I will be exploring the two coming-of-age films, Billy Elliot and Moonlight, and how both structure transformation to exemplify the interconnectedness between poverty and masculinity within their respective socio-economic cultural contexts. To begin, I will introduce these two socio-economic contexts and how each could be regarded in similar and different ways. Billy Elliot is a coming-of-age film by Stephen Daldry released in the year 2000, yet set in 1984 Durham coalfield in northeast England, about Billy, the son of a coal miner and deceased mother, along with his older brother who also happens to be a miner. Specifically, Billy wants to become a ballet dancer while his country of England experiences the 1984 to 1985 United Kingdom miners' strike. As according to John Spence and Carol Stevenson, the strike was fought and lost during a one-year struggle by the National Union of Mine Workers, in which women united with men in opposition to the National Coal Board and Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government. As for Moonlight, it is also a coming-of-age film directed by Barry Jenkins and released in 2016, set in the 90s and 2000s of Miami, Florida during the American crack cocaine epidemic. It is a three-part story about a boy, teenager, and man named Chiron, who grapples with his own sexuality and family trauma in the midst of drug abusing and drug dealing. As stated in the Federal Crack Cocaine Sentencing Project, crack became prevalent in the 1980s and received extensive media attention, due in part to its exponential growth in the drug market, associated with its cheap price, which for the first time made cocaine available to a wider economic class. I will first introduce the presence of mise-en-scène within Billy Elliot in representing transformation, further connecting the presence of poverty on one's masculinity. In the beginning shot of Billy Elliot, a soft focus lens is used to track the blocking of Billy's hands carrying a vinyl player, which plays the song Cosmic Dancer by T-Rex. For one, the soft focus lens removes the distraction of all else other than the music, blurring out the living room background. As evidenced in the lyrics of the song, the basis of Billy Elliot's own desires with no other extenuating factors like economic or social status is fully exposed to the audience. However, the immediate purity, innocence, and undetermined future of Billy Elliot's childhood is solely introduced in order to be shattered as the film progresses within such economic conditions of the miners' strike of 1984, as well as under the belittling social conditions of a boy attempting to prove his worth as a ballet dancer. Specifically in a period of time where it was unacceptable by all of his male figures, including his peers, father, and brother. Even more so, Daldry's omission of Billy's feminine figures, like his deceased mother and even living grandmother, highlights the treachery that Billy must face when grappling with his masculinity while pursuing such feminine passions. In fact, according to Jennifer Fisher, in a 2003 sociological study, male ballet dancers repeated a number of negative characterizations they had encountered: feminine, homosexual, wimp, spoiled, gay, dainty, fragile, weak, fluffy, woosy, prissy, artsy, and sizzy. Unfortunately for his coming-of-age story, Daldry placing Billy Elliot as an ordinary boy in the ballet world speaks for the social pressures, discrimination, and outcasts that stand as breeding grounds for toxic masculine beliefs such as emotional neglection, pain tolerance, and loneliness. On the other hand, Moonlight also utilizes mise-en-scène in order to represent transformation, effectively underlining the sheer impact poverty has on one's masculinity. However, rather than revealing the protagonist like in Billy Elliot's opening shot, the mise-en-scène of Moonlight's opening shot serves to act as an entrance into his world by its setting. Not even exposing the audience to what the protagonist Chiron looks like, the camera tracks dealer Juan instead with the soundtrack
Every nigga is a star.
stopping as the car turns off. Juan is centered in the frame, walking in a soft lens focus that blurs out the rest of his peripheral by beaten down houses and a drug deal with his friend. The contrast between setting and individual places an emphasis on the bearer of that dangerous setting. As the high-frequency blare of sirens and competing conversations can be heard, the camera movement, rule of thirds, and soft lens focus all combine in order to highlight and expose Juan as a direct effect or even consequence to the true setting of Miami, Florida during the 90s, featuring drugs, addicts, police, and criminals. Overall, the violent and dangerous atmosphere is also immediately fortified and unchangeable from the film's narrative, just as the soon-to-be-introduced Chiron's life. As well as mise-en-scène, Stephen Daldry also implements cinematography in Billy Elliot to represent transformation, collectively crystallizing the toxicity that poverty spreads on one's masculinity. Here, a low-angle shot on the shrine of Billy Elliot's deceased mother signifies the power she holds in his eyes, as well as his family's eyes, even after passing away. Moreover, the feminine and maternal love she used to provide for him is gone, now replaced by the higher expectations from his brother and father. Expectations that stem from even his family's toxic masculine fear of the unknown, as film analyst Sarah Nichol words as not being society's truly strong men within the high-class society of ballet in London. On another note, this shot also upholds the intertwined nature between the femininity that ballet is shown to represent, yet the strength it truly entails from both physical and mental endurance. His mother's unchosen absence implies the filling of that mental void with ballet dancing as a transformative escape to the femininity he lacks without his maternal figure. However, as proposed by Sarah Nichols, it begs the question as to how a working-class boy can define his masculinity when his interests do not fit within community convention. To assist, during Billy's ballet training with the girls, Daldry introduces mirrors to distort the camera angles surrounding Billy, and as seen through the rule of thirds, the point bar literally splits him and the ballerina. Overall, these muddled and altered perspectives of vision compel the audience to represent Billy Elliot's initial emotions in regard to ballet, such as displacement and not belonging to a community run by women. As a result, Billy's inner turmoil acts as proof behind the seed of emotional ignorance that is planted and watered throughout one's childhood of masculine trauma, which Daldry intends to paint as caution towards the emergence of a toxic pillar of masculinity. As done in Billy Elliot, Jenkins also utilizes cinematography in Moonlight to represent transformation, which exemplifies the process by which poverty enforces toxic masculinity, but through the combination of various key lightings with differing colorways. In this shot of Paula, the harsh and bright neon pink behind her and the low-key lighting that covers half of her body and face rather denounces and shames Chiron's mother for her self-damaging actions, as well as the entire visual intake of it by her own son. Contrasted with the immediate shift in setting to the soft pastel pinks and blues of Juan's house and high-key lighting to accompany him, Chiron's solace yet anger exudes in this home as supported by a silence towards Teresa. This is possibly due to the distrust he now has with maternal figures, immediately following the incident with his mother, but also towards Juan, as the indirect and direct reasoning behind his mother's addiction. However, Chiron himself is aware of the respect he has for this couple. Right after, the low-angle shot of Chiron's perspective looking up at Juan implies this position of power that Juan holds over Chiron's impressionable self, not in an exploitative, shameful way, but rather in a true, fatherly, and paternal way. As worded in an interview with Barry Jenkins himself, in The Sovereignty of Quiet, Kevin Quashie contends that quiet can act as a mode of black resistance that is distinguishable from silence and its connotations, the sense that something has been repressed. In this sense, Chiron can be understood as a character moving through culture, masculinities, prescriptions, and time. With this knowledge, Jenkins successfully makes it impossible to intake the film without viewing through the scope of Chiron's present and inner thoughts throughout such trauma, a masterful technique to vicariously immerse the audience in Chiron's experiences, where they themselves undergo the holism that toxic masculinity is a collection of past experiences, rather than individual. What only makes the toxicity worse is the idea of not being in control of one's life, especially the aspects hurting oneself. Jenkins' three-layered story of Chiron's coming of age constructs past pain and trauma as the reason behind one's emotional suppression, as well as continuous proof that it should stay emotionally suppressive. All in all, the mise-en-scène and cinematography of both Billy Elliot and Moonlight within each film's respective socioeconomic contexts serve to act as a representation of inner thought with film technique in order to exemplify the long-standing and pollutive effects of poverty on one's masculinity. In short, the mise-en-scène within both films portray the predetermined social standards and economic setbacks behind Billy Elliot's childhood and Chiron's childhood, while each film's cinematography acts as evidence and reasoning for the struggle with masculinity in each boy's eventual coming of age. In either film, the masculine energy that builds off of Billy Elliot and Chiron's poor economic statuses, as well as the resulting expectations to uphold that masculinity, are what snowball as Daldry and Jenkins' foundational explanations of how specifically toxic masculinity festers within the already difficult circumstances of poverty.